The carnage has begun as Turkey invades and bombs northern Syria, attacking the Kurds, including Christians. We're going to talk about that. We'll talk about the latest shock poll from Fox, that and much more. I'm Randall Terry. This is Voice of Resistance. Welcome to the program, friend. This is a difficult program for me to do both in content and with emotion because of the horror that has now been unleashed upon the Kurdish population in northern Syria, to the south of the Turkish border. It's going to take me some time, and I want you to focus on the competing interests that we have here. Let me state at the beginning, I absolutely disagree with what President Trump has done. Absolutely disagree with the fact that he has pulled American troops away from the Kurdish forces, away from the prison camps where ISIS terrorists are being held, and has given permission to the Turkish military to come in and basically do whatever they want. Video footage is allegedly only now beginning to creep out because major news organizations are simply not going to put boots on the ground in that area right now because there's a very high likelihood that they could be severely injured or even killed by Turkish fire. There's several competing issues here, and I hope to touch on all of them. One of the reasons that this is difficult for me is because if you're a regular viewer of this program, I am a supporter of President Trump. But he's making a big mistake here, and the mistake is that he is not protecting the Christian population, specifically the Christian population and the Yazidi population of that area. It's called the PKK. The United States has determined that it is a terrorist group. These are the exact people that we armed and trained to fight against ISIS. So as a backdrop, we sided with trained, armed, paid Kurdish fighters, many of whom, not all of them, but many of whom are in what we have designated as a terrorist organization. We defeated ISIS. There's some 12,000 ISIS terrorist prisoners. Well, now there are reports coming out at the time of this taping. Suicide bombers are moving in. A call has been issued from the current leader of ISIS to do everything they can to free these prisoners, and they're getting ready to make a bolt. My underlying complaint with President Trump is that he could have used America's resources to move certain people into a safe area. You just do the imagination with me. And said to the Turks, you cannot touch these people, period. In a just war scenario, you are required, the authorities are required to have a grievous offense, something that cannot be resolved any other way. Grave evils are happening, as in human lives being taken, and not a lot of loss of life of innocent people, and a hope of success. All of those requirements we can meet, all right, in the theory of just war. So I think President Trump really messed up on this one. Now I'm going to talk about the overarching political and international relations issues that may be in President Trump's mind, and he can't say them out loud. All right? Or maybe he's saying them behind closed doors. In other words, President Trump is a brilliant man, and there is always a method to his madness. Beyond him saying, look, I promised I would get our men out of these wars all over the world. We're tired of being taken advantage of. We're tired of being the world's policemen. And I get that. And there are people that are watching right now who are saying, bring our guys home. What those people do over there is none of our business. Here's the problem. These are our fellow Christians. They are fellow believers in Jesus Christ whose only crime is that they believe the Apostles' Creed, that they've been baptized, that they proclaim the good news that Jesus died for us. So there is a higher obligation. There's an obligation of all of us that we all have to all innocent human life. But knowing that a Muslim nation such as Turkey is going to deliberately set out to kill Christians, if we can stop that, we have a moral obligation to do so as a nation that believes in religious freedom and that believes in Christianity. Most of us are Christians in this country. So it complicates things a little bit, but not that much. And this is where the president messed up. Let me take a break, and then I'm going to talk to you about some of the underlying problems that exist with NATO, in our relationship to NATO allies, and with Turkey in particular. Please stay with me. Introducing Roxy Guitar. If you're a guitar or bass player, whether you play acoustic or electric, check out Roxy Guitar. I've been playing for over 40 years and seen guitar stores all over America. I've never seen a store like Roxy Guitar. Roxy Guitar has over 700 guitars in stock, over 1,500 pedals, over 200 amps. For the beginner or price-conscious buyer, there's Michael Kelly guitars. For the serious player or professional, Roxy Guitar has the finest selection of guitar lines I've ever seen. You know I love Warrior guitars. Roxy Guitar has over 100 Warriors in stock. They have Heritage, G&L, Gretsch, John Sears, BC Rich, Duesenberg, Dean, legendary guitars at great prices, including pre-owned Gibsons, Fenders, and more. Let them know you heard about Roxy Guitar from Randall Terry and receive 10% or more off your purchase on select items. Go to roxyguitar.com. Welcome back. These are elements that all come together in the crisis in Turkey and Syria right now. Number one, the Ottoman Empire used to be called the sick man of Europe. It was a huge Islamic empire that existed in the heart of Europe, on the fringes of Asia, and in North Africa. For hundreds of years, the caliph or the caliphate was based in modern Turkey. Now, the caliph is a similar equivalent to a pope, only a pope just has religious authority. A caliph had military authority and political authority as well as spiritual authority. And there was a caliph, a successor. Khalifa is the Arabic word for successor. There was a successor from Muhammad, the founder of Islam, all the way through 1924, if my memory is correct, when a man named Ataturk, after World War I, abolished the caliphate, just abolished it. That is what set the wheels in motion to form the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood said, just imagine the Roman Catholic Church, some outside force saying, we're abolishing the papacy. It doesn't matter if you're Catholic or you hate the Catholic Church. It doesn't matter. Just imagine someone trying to do that. Catholics would say, whoa, what? Abolish the papacy? Are you out of your mind? So devout Muslims said, what? Abolish the caliphate? Are you out of your mind? The Muslim Brotherhood was born with the express purpose of, number one, restoring the caliphate, and number two, restoring the Ummah, the one Muslim land. Because after World War I, the victorious allies carved up the Ottoman Empire and said, here, France, you can take this, and here, the Dutch, you can be over here, and the Americans over here, and the English over here. And actually, the Americans didn't have much to do with it, but we were involved in carving up. The victorious allies were involved in carving up the Ottoman Empire, and the Muslim Brotherhood said, we want the caliph back, and we want one big Muslim nation back, one empire back. Erdogan, the president of Turkey, is a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. He believes in what they believe. And there have been multiple reports, articles written, and I believe suggesting that he would like to be the caliph, even if in name only. Because you're not going to get the Egyptians and the Saudi Arabians to give up their political independence right now. That's not going to happen. But if he could get enough of them to say, hey, we do need a figurehead. We need a caliph. He's the guy who wants it. He believes in the caliphate. And the Kurds that he's fighting against don't want it. The ones that are the so-called terrorists, okay? That we have designated as terrorists. Many of them are Marxists. Christians certainly don't want a restored caliphate. And Christians have been slaughtered by the Turks in times past. At the end of World War I, the Turks killed nearly 1 million Christians in cold blood. So the earth is littered with the unmarked graves of Christians who died after the Ottoman Empire was defeated and the caliphate was abolished. So that's problem number one. Here's problem number two. Turkey is a member of NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Now, when Turkey was brought in 1952, it bordered the Soviet Union, okay? The Soviet Union is no more. But at the time, it was in our interest, it was in NATO's interest to have Turkey in our fold and not in the Soviet Union's fold. So we brought them in. We even had nuclear missiles based in Turkey. We ultimately took them out as a result of a secret deal between Kennedy and Khrushchev regarding the Cuban Missile Crisis. That was the quid pro quo. They'll take the missiles out of Cuba, we'll take the missiles out of Turkey. But a lot has happened in 70 years. There is no more Soviet Union. And this is how bad Turkey is. They're a member of NATO, right? But the European Union won't let them in because of the oppression of minorities and the lack of freedom, the lack of religious freedom. That's what we're dealing with Turkey. In any worldview, if they were not a part of NATO, we would look at them like we look at Saudi Arabia, as an oppressive regime. And now President Trump has pulled back and said to this oppressive regime, hey, if you want to come in and start slaughtering people, it's none of our business. You see the conflict here? So you've got one press statement after another coming out from the Germans, the Australians. More will be coming, and probably by the time the show airs, more will have come. Let me tell you what President Trump may be thinking. There's two things that I want to address when we come back. The terrorists themselves and Turkey's relationship to NATO. Don't go away.
I also want to speak tonight directly to Muslims throughout the world. We respect your faith. Its teachings are good and peaceful. And those who commit evil in the name of Allah blaspheme the name of Allah.
We have reaffirmed again and again that the United States is not and never will be at war with Islam. Islam teaches peace.
Islam is a religion of peace. They are not Muslims, they are monsters.
We've been told that Muslim terrorists have hijacked the peaceful religion of Islam. But Islamic art and literature tell a very different story. To know the truth, we only have to study the narrative of the founder of Islam, Muhammad, in his own words. Welcome back, friend. All right, so President Trump has some method to his madness. And one of them simply may be that he's honoring his campaign promise. I'm bringing our men home. I'm not going to leave our men in these far-flung regions in a Middle Eastern conflict that we didn't start and we can't end. We cannot impose democracy. That area does not have democracy. It has not had democracy for over 1,000. Well, really, it has never had democracy. It's gone from one strong man, one tyrant to another. So he may be saying, all right, let's get him out. But there's a couple other issues here. Number one is Turkey's relationship to NATO. Maybe President Trump is thinking, well, let's pop the pimple. Let's acknowledge that Turkey does not remotely share the values of Europe and America. Now, I recognize that Europe has backslidden, okay? Hilaire Belloc said, Europe is the faith. I don't think that's true anymore. But the fact of the matter is that Christianity was birthed, it spread, and Europe was converted. Europe was Christianized. America was founded as at least a Protestant Christian nation. And these nations, with a Trinitarian view of God and with the law of God as the foundation for their culture, whether they be Protestant or Catholic, and there's been a lot of changes over the years, but it still was considered Christian civilization. That was what it was called. It's what Churchill referred to it as, Christian civilization. I recognize that we've backslidden, but the fact of the matter is Turkey has never been a part of that Christian civilization, and historically it has been an enemy of that Christian civilization, and it's in NATO. So maybe Trump is trying to say to the NATO allies, hey, we have a problem, and we're not going to be the only people to put it in check, which leads to the secondary issue is, Australia says, this is horrible, this is horrible. So President Trump could say to Australia, why don't you send troops? Germany's saying, this is an outrage, it's a humanitarian crisis. President Trump could say, I agree, it's horrible. You want to send troops? Do you want to put your men in harm's way? Do you want to send German and French and English and Australian soldiers to stand against a NATO ally? You see how complicated this gets? That's what we're dealing with here. So maybe President Trump is trying to get a twofer to say to the allies, look, we have a problem with Turkey being in NATO. You don't want them in the European Union. You want us to stay there and put our troops in harm's way against the lunatics, the leadership of Turkey? Why don't you send your troops? So maybe there will be a coalition that goes in there to protect people. I don't know. Now, there's another issue. The Democrats are screaming, and the Republicans are screaming, that President Trump should not be pulling the troops back because of what is already begun. Even as we speak, people are dying. That's what's just so sickening about this. As we speak, people are dying. So maybe President Trump is waiting for there to be enough of an outcry, both from American elected officials, American citizens, and European allies, and Australia, and anyone else who cares. Saudi Arabia is complaining. Okay, Saudis, send in your troops. You've got troops. By the president pulling out, he's letting everyone see who's got cards and what cards they have and they want to put on the table. It may be politically a shrewd move. The problem is the innocent people who are going to die because they don't fit the Muslim mold of the Muslim Brotherhood and Turkey and Erdogan. That's where the rub is for me, personally. And I believe it's the rub ethically, historically. I believe that we do have an obligation to protect those people. Those people. This is, at this point, this is not simply about whether our soldiers are in far-flung areas of the world. I believe that if we have the opportunity to save innocent people, and the loss of life will be minimal, and we have the ability to do so, then we should do it. Just like the Good Samaritan. He saved the man dying in the ditch. It was risky, but he did it. That's what to love our neighbor means. I've got to take a break. A couple more thoughts on this when we come back. Don't go away. What Would Mohammed Do? Islamic Terrorism Explained is the best movie series documentary ever produced on the life of Muhammad and Islam. How do I know? Because it's what critics are saying. John Moore, radio host and author, said, I learned more from What Would Mohammed Do about Islam and Islamic terrorism than I've learned from everything I ever read and watched in my entire life. Best-selling author Dr. Bill Warner said, What Would Mohammed Do is the best movie series, TV production on the life of Muhammad and Islamic terrorism that has ever been produced. Friends, this is what the experts are saying. No one has ever done what we've done. I encourage you to get 1, 2, 4 copies. Call 304-289-3700. That's 289-3700 or order it at the address or the website that you see on the screen. Introducing Roxy Guitar. If you're a guitar or bass player, whether you play acoustic or electric, check out Roxy Guitar. I've been playing for over 40 years and seen guitar stores all over America. I've never seen a store like Roxy Guitar. Roxy Guitar has over 700 guitars in stock, over 1,500 pedals, over 200 amps. For the beginner or price-conscious buyer, there's Michael Kelly guitars. For the serious player or professional, Roxy Guitar has the finest selection of guitar lines I've ever seen. You know I love Warrior guitars. Roxy Guitar has over 100 Warriors in stock. They have Heritage, G&L, Gretsch, John Sears, BC Rich, Duesenberg, Dean, legendary guitars at great prices, including pre-owned Gibsons, Fenders, and more. Let them know you heard about Roxy Guitar from Randall Terry and receive 10% or more off your purchase on select items. Go to roxyguitar.com. Welcome back, friend. Let me shift gears for a minute. There's a Fox News poll out that everyone's talking about. 51% of Americans now want Trump out of office. In the poll, 40% of the people polled were Republicans, 12% were independents. The numbers don't add up. Something about the poll is skewed. I'm not sure what it is, but the president's polling numbers among Republicans are at 90%. So for them to get that number, that 51% want him impeached, would mean that that every single Democrat and every single independent wanted Trump out. So there's something about those polls that simply does not make sense. So there is a hue and cry going up among conservatives today. We'll see how it all plays out. I don't trust the number. Now, what's even, because you don't know how it's weighted in the sense of how many California people were in the poll, how many New York people were in the poll. Because California Republicans and New York Republicans, while Republicans can be much more liberal, Virginia Republicans can be more liberal. So there's elements of this poll that we don't know about. At least right now, I don't know about. Those are the deep dig details of the poll that could skew it. But it's not the New York Times, so everyone's jumping on it because, oh, look, even Fox, which is a great supporter of President Trump, has this polling data out. There's also a discussion going on. You might have heard of Newsmax TV, The Blaze, the network that Glenn Beck started. There is a steadily growing discontent with Fox News because the upper echelon of the leadership, the board members, many of them are not Trump friends. And so as you watch Fox, you see more and more Donna Brazile, who was the campaign manager, if my memory is correct, of Al Gore, a hardcore leftist. You know, you're seeing people who don't like President Trump. And frankly, that doesn't bother me. One of the reasons I like Tucker Carlson is every night he goes out of his way to have on a political adversary. That's good television, and it's good debate, and it's balanced. So that doesn't bother me about Fox. What bothers me about CNN and MSNBC and the three other networks is that they don't do that. They're not letting the story be told. Like the situation with Turkey and with northern Syria. You're not going to have the major networks explain the Muslim Brotherhood and the threat that the Muslim Brotherhood is to freedom, to human rights, the threat that Turkey is to people who don't embrace an Islamic tyrannical worldview. So the Fox News poll is going to come and it's going to go. President Trump is starting to hit the trail. He's going to go hither and yon. He is going to have campaign stops. There's going to be enormous media coverage in the cities that he goes, and he's going to have huge crowds, and those crowds are going to tell their friends. Now it looks like he's going to try and win Minnesota. He's going to try and win New Mexico. He's going all out. And the Democrats don't have anybody worth a darn to face him. Joe Biden is imploding because the news is starting to finally figure out maybe there was some corruption there with Hunter Biden. I've got to run. I'm sorry, I'm out of time. See you next week. Have a great weekend.